Hello and welcome along to the Andrew Eborn Show, where I'm delighted it's 9:09 and on the line we have the wonderful YASSER Kayani. How are you, YASSER?
Oh my God, what a surprise, Andrew! Fantastic.
And always shy and retiring.
I'm very shy and retiring. I'm very not languid. What's the word? I'm very not reclusive. What's the word? I can't remember. Languid.
You're very unforgetful. It's always, and I'll tell you what I love, YASSER, we've been talking about getting on you on the show forever, and rather like London buses, you wait forever, and then all millions of them are going to come at once, because we're going to get you on as a regular spot. And we thought, you suddenly showed me your schedule for the next 10 minutes and said, I'm taking my mum shopping, I'm doing
all this stuff,
Jonathan, and I'm going to be writing some new stuff. It's brilliant.
That's my life, Andrew. I'm never free for more than an hour at a time. Crazy. It's crazy.
It's always but just taking you back, yes, just taking you back, because you're a brilliant writer, comedian.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sorts of wonderful things as well. And you also help a lot of people, because you do a lot of collaboration. You've done your monkey wedding, you've done your chaos theory. You're currently working down in Brighton at the longest running satirical show for what is it, 20 years?
20 years from 2000. It's amazing. It's full of satire. At the moment it's run by Mark Brailsford, who's a great performer and writer. Normally it's run by a whole team of company of actors, and they do a show every fortnight, a live show on live TV, which is also broadcast on YouTube. It's full of satire, and we contribute bits and pieces, sketches, songs, parody songs and we lampoon the high and mighty.
Oh, I saw you got things like The Worst Wing, ha ha ha, and you got Fox News. I think it's got to be careful there. I've seen the stuff. I love it. It's brilliant.
It's FUX, by the way, audience, not that swear word, so don't complain.
I'm not going to tune in again. I'm so disappointed. I'm getting you an audience here. It's going to be brilliant. I love it. Yeah, I love the satire, and I particularly, as you know, my sense of humor is all very sort of want to be twisted, but I love the clever satirical stuff, and it's that brilliant writing. That's that brilliant writing, which is right up to date. But nowadays, come on, this is the gift that keeps giving, isn't it?
Oh my God. Both Trump and Boris are gifts to comedians, because they're parodies of themselves. It's incredible.
As soon as fact is stranger than fiction,
absolutely,
you know, that's the moment, isn't it?
They are a rich seam of comedy, both of them, for the next, I think, 5-10 years, if they're still around, especially Boris.
No, absolutely. I mean, they're all going to be around somewhere, and you can go back. It's rather like the good old days when people always used to do a Frank Spencer impersonation.
Can you do one?
Do you remember? That was it. Everybody from Mike Yarwood to every puzzle, they'd all come out and do their best.
He was ubiquitous, Frank Spencer. Absolutely. Now it's all Boris.
Boris, and it's all coronavirus. And this is, I mean, my very wise children said to me, look, what happens to the rest of the news whilst the news is dominated by Trump and corona? What happens to the rest of it?
There's the problem, because there are bits of the news which are as fascinating. For example, there was a story last week. There was a toilet launched into space. You know, it's beautiful. So you could do parody songs onto that. That's a big story.
Punchline. What do you mean? The astronauts had nothing to go on or something? You've got to come up with something. They were
so there are songs out there. But I think outside coronavirus and Boris and Trump, there are big stories out there which we should follow.
Oh, absolutely. And this is what I love about it. I'm delighted to see the return of Spitting Image. I was down in Cannes last year when they had the wonderful puppets. There's a picture of me.
Have you watched it?
Oh, what do you think?
Of course you have. I've seen clips of it. It's very good.
It's lots of fun. I think the writing was so good the first time round, and so topical and so brilliant together with the puppets. My honest opinion is that I think it's glorious that the puppets are so good. I would like the writing to get up to the level it was beforehand.
Yes, I think that requires the writers to be working together and brainstorming together. That's the key. If you work together as writers,
you collaborate on a lot of things, and I've heard this brilliant guy called YASSER Kayani who probably could join the writing crew on Spitting Image. See what I did there? This is what I'm trying to help you out.
Well, my tutor,
you could be your own puppet as well, couldn't you?
I could be a parody of myself.
But it's good because you have those wonderful, you have such a wonderful comedic face. And I've been looking at your social media every day. It is the eyes have it. And what I love is at the moment on Facebook, you're showing people all these wonderful new pictures of you, which are glorious. And every single one has this wonderful
eyes. Well, I was told to be a bit subdued with some of them because they're meant to be for general castings. And if I look like a madman, I won't get cast. So
if you're ever looking for an Asian Marty Feldman, this is
yes, I am the BAME Marty Feldman.
We love it. We love it.
By the way, BAME stands for brown and mostly enormous.
Oh,
that's my interpretation.
I can't say things like this anymore. I mean, talking about comedy, and it was George Carlin, who always said the secret of comedy is knowing where the line is and going beyond it. And going beyond it.
And there is a line.
That's the secret, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there is a line, but it depends on the audience where the line is, and you have to gauge as a comedian where that line is. Sometimes a line is very clean. It's a clean line between it. Sometimes you can go further. It depends on the audience's sensibilities.
Well, but also that's it. The whole idea, and this is when alternative comedians who are now mainstream in the 80s, and we're talking about the days even after the Frank Spencer impersonation. Comedy moved on a bit, and everybody became alternative. And you had the Jennifer Saunders, and you had that sort of wonderful sort of comic strip stuff, the Ben Eltons, and it was all machine gun fire. It was like the punk version of comedy. But then the alternative comedians became mainstream. And so we are no longer shocked, are we?
We're not only shocked anymore. And where is the reaction to them? Because at the moment, it's very left-wing comedy at the moment, especially at the BBC and other places. So I think the reaction to that, the antithesis of that, is comedy which is non-PC. So if you look on the circuit,
you could be the apple of comedy, the non-PC.
Apple.
That's
the mango of comedy. Mango of comedy, because on I'm on a course called the NFTS National TV School of Comedy Topical, and my tutor Bill there was a producer of Spitting Image.
I know. What's the course called again? Because it's such a slappy title.
I think I'll give you a plug. The course is called the National Film and Television School NFTS a Comedy Diploma course. They have places for next year, so those of you who want to do a bit of comedy, try their hand. Please apply.
No, they should do, because I was going to ask you, because one of the things, and when you look at your website, you try and get a bit of information. You're on your second wife for the second time, your third wife for the third time, your fourth wife for the thing. And you think, well, hang about, whoever wrote this obviously writes the rest of Wikipedia, because Yasser's biography is all over the place. It's a complete, never let the truth. Never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. I think that's the principle.
Faction is half true, half not, and that's up to the audience to decide which bits are true and which bits aren't.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's get a little bit of truth. And what I love to do on this show, and as you've seen, you're a regular and you contribute and say lovely things.
I love to contribute. I love your show.
We've done about 800 during lockdown alone. So
well done, Andrew.
Thank you. Everyone, I felt the pain.
What a body of work.
But it's great. But what I love about it, Yasser, is we do some really serious stuff. We deal a lot with mental health, and our good mate Jonathan Hans has been very powerful on that sort of side. But we also look at the lighter side. We talk to people around the world, because there is a common denominator. You know, the common denominator is beneath all the exterior, beneath all the fluffy, friffy stuff, we are all the same. And we like to laugh. And as Shakespeare so well put, if you prick us, do we not bleed?
Absolutely, that's so true.
If you tickle us, do we not laugh? And it's that laughter bit that I'm particularly interested in. Tell me, apart from, because I got nothing from your website, nothing at all.
Absolutely nothing.
Tell me how you started. Where were you born, first of all?
Well, I was born in the Midlands. I was born in Coventry, born in the UK, but I came down when I was very small. I was raised in London.
You were very small when you were born? It's amazing.
Yes, I was born very small.
And people have been trying to send you to Coventry ever since, haven't they? But
I think I was born in the Dunlop factory for some reason. I got no explanation for that. I was born somewhere in the north. I came down when I was very small.
We love Coventry, a great sense of humour. They're the people from Coventry.
They are
wonderful. And everybody I've met from Coventry.
They're very suppressed.
Where did that expression come from, by the way? Why do people say when they want to silence somebody or shut them up? Why do they? That didn't work in your case. Why do they say we're going to send them to Coventry? Why do they say that?
Because it was bombed during the war. That's why it was flattened, and it's like a punishment. It's like a punishment. It's like you're sent to a place where you're in danger. That's what I think it means. It might be wrong. I don't want to upset any people from Coventry, but that's what I think it means.
No, I want people upset because the best way of drawing a crowd is to start a fight. You ask P.T. Barnum, knew a thing or two, and he always used to say the best way to draw a crowd is to start a fight. So if we can say that YASSER KAYANI, the son, the hero of Coventry, came on the Andrew show and did nothing but rubbish it.
I'm the Lady Godiva. I'm the lady. Next time I come on naked like Lady Godiva did.
We love it. We love it.
I think partly because they're a bit mad, maybe, because they sort of walk around naked in the streets. That could be that reason that you're sent to Coventry, because you're mad.
If you've got nothing on, go to Coventry. Is that what they say? It could write itself, this stuff. This comedy dark's dead easy, isn't it? It's got to be.
That's a picture for a sitcom there.
Hey. So that's what. So you're born in Coventry. How long did you stay there?
Very small. It must be a few months old. Then I went down to London. My dad used to work for Burberry's. As an accountant there, so he used to have all this lovely gear which he used to bring home, raincoats, shoes, which I wore as a baby. So I was very well dressed.
So you in a massive Burberry?
I was very well dressed as a child.
Brilliant. And did the shop know that he was walking off with all their stuff?
Oh yes, there were samples.
Samples. That's what you do. Baby sample of Burberry. Baby Burberry. I remember that range well. Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did he do at Burberry? What was his job at Burberry?
He was an accountant there, so
that figures.
He had a very good job. Very good job. He was an insider, and this is a Burberry shop, I think, in Scotch Corner.
Yes. And
he used to go there. He said, "It's me," and they just saw his face, a few samples. You know what I mean? So I was very well dressed, which most of my friends were not. Being raised in Hackney. In the
Hackney. We love Hackney. Near Mare.
It's nice now. It's nice now. Hackney. It wasn't. Stoke Newington's nice where I am. Hackney was a bit of a split area. It was very good. It was very nice, or it wasn't very nice. So it depends where you were raised.
Those sort of days. I mean, people talk about. I mean, London, and we always celebrate London. And as you know, I was involved with the 2012 Olympics, and my good friend Boris would say that London was the only place in the world that could welcome people from all around the world, with people, with residents in London who came from those different countries, communities, religions, sects, whatever. And we have to be one of the best melting pots in the world. Is that fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say. I think London is special because it has infinite diversity and infinite combinations. It's one of those places in the world which looks to the future all the time. And it's a melting pot of all different races and cultures, and I think it's homogenized, and it's very different to the rest of the country, which is it's special place.
What I love, it's rather like your vocabulary bingo. You just thought, whatever's going to happen today, I'm just going to get the word homogenized in, because I think I'm just going to show off that I've been to my store this morning and I've had a look at some
I looked at pasteurized as well, or semi-skimmed. It depends on how you feel about London.
I mean, it is interesting because when you came down in, we're not allowed to talk about ages anymore. We're not allowed to talk about what people's age are. But when you came down in the
80s,
because you came down in that time, Frank Spencer. Whenever you came down in that era, have you noticed that there's been a change in attitude?
There has been a change in attitude. I think negatively, unfortunately. When I was growing up, there was much more cohesion. This is in the Thatcher era. I was a small child, so in that era there was more cohesion racially. There wasn't the divisions. I think the divisions in the 80s were more sort of to do with poverty and class, whereas the divisions nowadays are to do with race and the outsider, the foreigner. Because I didn't experience any racism when I was a child growing up in Stoke Newington, which was probably quite unusual. I didn't experience it because everybody was from different parts of the world. But if you're growing up now, there's great intolerance towards people of different races, especially people from the Islamic world, because of things like 9/11 and all the wars we've had since that time. So there is intolerance, although London is still a very tolerant place.
And I think part of the problem as well is that we're by nature we're all very tribal. That's if you go back. This is why people support football teams. They say this is your team. You have your local champion. When you're in sports, you embrace that sort of stuff. we're very competitive and very tribal. The difficulty is when there are difficult times, people pull up the latches, don't they? They pull up the drawbridge. They try and shut everybody else off.
Yeah, they always do. And things become extreme on either end, whether it's left wing or right. A comedy becomes extreme, and your parody to the point of being really insulting. So things go to extremes, and then things go back the other way. Things go in cycles. I think we'll go back into a more measured time, I think, in the future.
And I think I've had some great comedians on the show, and from all sorts of life, where people and from all around the world, where people don't necessarily think. I had a Middle Eastern comedian, we had a Muslim comedian, we had all sorts, but every possible thing. And it's interesting. And as you know, I was the chair for a number of years of the Montreux Comedy Festival.
Fantastic.
And we used to have people from around the world, International Comedy Festival, and there were always common themes about. We always laugh at ourselves. Laughing at ourselves is great.
We do.
Self-deprecating humor is brilliant because the human condition is hilarious. You're either going to laugh or you're going to cry.
That's it. It's universal human condition. So things about your family, things about your own personal problems, money, all universal things. Mental health issues are universal.
Absolutely.
And that unites us.
And I think when I'm trying desperately, and sort of one-man crusade, if you like, is trying desperately to work out the world's problems. I mean, we're in a mess at the moment. We are in a mess. And I think the more we can talk about things, jaw, not war,
absolutely,
is better. And I always try and say, as you know, my background as a lawyer, I try and say, look, put yourself in the other person's perspective. Put yourself in their shoes, walk in their moccasins for a few minutes. And see, because so often perception and reality are not aligned. And people are so quick to take offense. And so often people are looking for something offensive. And when you have your own prejudices, I say in terms of political persuasion or whatever, you will go and try and feed those prejudices, whether it's by the newspaper you read, the channels that you watch, the people you listen to, your social media. And all you're doing nowadays, as we're drowning in the sea of information, you can be bombarded with people confirming your prejudices. And that then becomes a cycle of decline, if you like, because nobody then enables people to open up their mind and say, well, hang on, there are different views. And then if you take those different views, you're not going to solve things, are you?
Absolutely. I think people spend their time too much on social media. It's like an echo chamber. So you're hearing the things that you believe in with your friends, and you're not seeing other points of view. That's true in comedy, because comedy is very polarizing at the moment. It's either very left-wing, they support left-wing policies, or they're very right-wing. I think for the people who are moderate, they've been drowned out by the extremes. But
is moderate funny? I mean, don't you have to have an extreme for comedy?
I think you do. Comedy is the exception. I think comedy is the exception. You can be extreme, but then you do get silenced by the other side.
Sent to Coventry. You get sent to Coventry by the other side, don't you?
Coventry naked. I'm covered in crab paste.
Crab paste. Oh, I'll tell you, I used to live down on the south coast, a place called Bracklesham Bay for many years, and in a place called Chichester, they used to have Shipham's paste, talking of crab paste. And you could always tell, I went to school, lovely school called Prebendal, before that Northgate House, in Chichester. But this whole place would have like in that Snoopy cartoon, it would have like that green cloud over it, where you could smell this crab paste being made.
Those poor crabs being killed.
Absolutely. I went to a beach party once called a mussel. I know. All of these sort of ta-da! Everyone.
You're on fire,
everyone's a wiener. I love it. So you work on the base. So you spent time in Hackney, as you say. It's changed. It has changed. Where did you go? You went to school in Hackney. Where did you develop those funny bones? I mean, did you always find yourself being the entertainer at school?
I was at school, although at school I was a bit naughty because I was always very studious, but I was also very naughty. I was more the instigator of trouble than actually getting in trouble. I caused trouble. I caused others to mess around and watched. That means I never got in trouble myself very much. So I always got very good school reports. I was very naughty behind the scenes because I had very strict parents, you see.
So it's no good. So it's no good winning. You have to make sure everybody else loses. So you got the brilliant school reports, and everybody else in the school. You made sure they were rubbish.
Absolutely. No, I was terribly naughty. Because also I went to Islamic school after. I went to two schools. One was a British school. Of course, after I went to an Islamic school at the same time in the evenings, and I had to learn the Quran by the time I was 10. And there I was actually beaten, which was actually illegal at the time. I was hit by bamboo sticks. I was punished with corporal punishment, but that made you very studious. So it does work. So I advocate.
So that was at school. You were beaten.
At school.
When you were 10.
At school. Yes.
In a time when it was illegal.
I think in the early Islamic schools of the time in the 90s, I went to one, and the teachers there used corporal punishment with the endorsement of the parents, which was fine. We didn't know any better.
But no, you say it's fine and you didn't know any better. I mean, in terms, is that still happening?
Not anymore. I think those schools were abolished and replaced by especially Islamic schools, which have to follow the national curriculum. But before that time, it was a bit like the Wild West, and kids were hit and put in stress positions, and I think emotionally abused. They were put in stress positions. Yeah, if you didn't memorize a passage correctly, you might stand in the corner with your leg above your knee or something for 10 minutes. That's typical. That's typical what they used to do. And what sort of things would cause those punishments? Things like messing around, talking, chewing gum, having dirty fingernails, not brushing your teeth. So it was a very sort of like a military type discipline, which I never experienced before. But it made you more studious, although it was a complete shift from what I was used to in school. Well, you went from being the rebel in this other school. Yeah. What was the name of the other school? It was the same school. It's being taught by a teacher. It was very informal, but I was still mischievous. No, but you said you went to two schools. One where you were very mischievous. I think it was the same building, but it was used by the Islamic. Okay. So it changed. It changed. So it wasn't two schools. It was the same school. It was the same school, but it was just an informal thing. They used the classrooms that I used, so it was interesting experience. But do you say then, I mean, you say interesting experience, and I can tell, because you can tell from your whole body language and things like that, you're still bearing those scars. And I think people from the age of 10, if you're put in a stress position and you're beaten, and it's against the law at the time, whatever you're saying, and your parents are endorsing it because they think that's the way you have to do things. Yeah. I think I got off lightly because I wasn't punished as much as the others. But in that era, I think a light tapping with the cane was acceptable. But you're saying, but there's more than that. You're saying it amounted to torture, and you're put in stress positions, and you're humiliated. Very rarely, but it did happen occasionally. No, but whether it happened, I mean, whether it happened once, once is too many times. Absolutely, once is too many times. Absolutely, it was a different era, which hopefully would not happen now. And are you in touch with a lot of the people from your school? One or two are Facebook friends. They're well-adjusted people. Hasn't affected them because it was only like 1 or 2 hours a week. We went there. It wasn't every day, and we had experience of mixing with other people from other cultures, so we were quite well balanced. It didn't really affect us. But those people who actually had to go to Islamic schools and face it every day would be traumatized. Because I've got a friend who went to an Islamic madrasa abroad, and he went blind. Went blind? He went blind because I think the shock of the culture shock of going to a place with such an extreme a regimen made him blind at 13, and he's still blind now. So the shock of that made him blind. So I also got off lightly compared to him. So within this, I mean, it's obviously extremely serious, and we don't want to inflame the prejudices or anything. But and I'm sure people now are responding very differently. But where they have certain cultures, and I always try to say, look, keep an open mind. Let's hear what people have to say to justify it. But and they always say, show me a child to the age of 7, I'll show you the man or woman. Absolutely. Growing up now and trying to deal with the world, and part of the problems that result in that, a lot of that has to do with education, how you bring up the children, how you bring them up to be tolerant, accepting, open-minded, all those sort of wonderful things. Yes.
If people are still suffering from those terrible experiences, it's not so long ago.
Absolutely.
That's an issue that should be addressed, isn't it? Is it being addressed?
I think it is being addressed. I think people do seek help when they need it. And that's very important. But I haven't met anybody who's Islamic who's been stressed in this country being brought up. I think people from overseas have been stressed by the way they've been treated. But here, it's much more tolerant. So and luckily,
if people want to talk about it, I mean, it's I have to say, it's the first time that somebody's openly, to my knowledge, spoken about this side.
It's taboo, really.
And I understand it's taboo, and part of the reason with things which are taboo is, and it's like a pressure cooker. I always say that you build it up inside until you explode. Yeah. The reason comedians are often so stressed is because they always have this glorious exterior, it's all ebullient, it's all wonderful, but inside they are so twisted and torn up.
I think that's universally true. I think that's universally true for all comedians are like that. They have a mask for the public, and their real side is either much more serious, or they're not nice people, one or the other.
And I think that happens, and you hear a lot of tragic cases like Robin Williams, for example, that you have Tony Hancock, you have
very fortunate
Peter Cook, and Jonathan's got his theories about Jonathan himself. A lot of these people, comedy becomes a defense mechanism, doesn't it?
It does. And those people that have been through trauma and been through bad things, it makes them actually better comedians because they can tap into that and be very dark. So ironically, the things that traumatize them in an early age makes them really great comedians. So the thing
that the human condition is hilarious, that human form and stuff like that. But this is why satire can be so powerful. It's my favorite form of comedy because it shines a spotlight on the absurdities of the world, and done well, without overplaying it. I think comedy can be a force for good. It can make changes, can't it?
It makes changes, and it can unite people from different classes and cultures, and it's something we can laugh at together and see the world as it really is. The world is to be laughed at and made fun of sometimes. Life is too serious, generally, everyday lives. Just the relaxing and laughing at our leaders and the policies we have to endure is a good thing. Because being in Britain, we can do that. In some countries, if you did that, you'd be locked up. Hence the Treason Show, because we are committing acts of treason.
No, I get it. As I say, Fox News.
Fox News. I mean, in some countries, that would get us in big trouble. We'd be locked up.
Yes,
but Fox News.
And that's what I found interesting. As I say, there's certain things where not only taboos in certain cultures, but you're getting comedians from certain backgrounds who are touching on subjects which would normally get them into trouble. You went, as you say, to a very strict Islamic school. Were you? You said the first time you were messing around and you got the A grade, everybody else D's and F's. You then went to this very strict background. What happened? Did the comedy come out as a result of that sort of pressure? Because you said you were about 10 when you were being beaten and put in stress positions.
I mean, the comedy was always there, but I became much more subtle with there. But I became much darker, actually, the comedy from then on. But afterwards, when I stopped going there, I was back to normal. So I was just doing things.
But you say your parents, I mean, your father working at Burberry's.
Yes.
He was endorsing the punishments that you received.
I think most immigrant parents from that first generation, they instilled in us discipline, so for example, they think like they punish you if you do something wrong. They would hit you, but that was the culture in the Islamic world. To discipline your kids, you have to give them a tap or slap, and wait till your father gets home, that kind of thing. And it worked with me because I was very well behaved at home generally, but outside.
Generally, what did you get up to?
Just things like I think outside the home I was very mischievous. You know, I'm going to bunking off school occasionally. You know, once in a while. Stealing textbooks, which is a bizarre thing to do. Stealing stationery from the school, making fun of teachers. But you know, things that I would do, but I never got in trouble for them because I wasn't the front person doing all the messing around. I was the instigator.
So would other people get punished for your?
Unfortunately, they did for my foibles. because I was just watching it. It's just so egging them on. So I was more the producer. I was the producer type. So I was causing the trouble without being blamed for it, which was very naughty of me.
Well, no, but sometimes if the consequences are quite serious, to be
They can be serious.
Tortured effectively, what was
Yes.
the rationale for doing it?
I think in Islamic doctrine, the child has to be brought up with discipline. So if you do something wrong, you're punished for it. So there's a reaction. Things like if you don't wash your nails, you're tapped twice with a bamboo stick. If you don't brush your teeth, you're forced to read passage from the Quran 10 times. So it's like old-fashioned Victorian values put into the modern day. So that still goes on, I think, in some of these madrasas, not here because follow the national curriculum, but overseas it does. My friend going blind is an example. I think he was brought up here. He's been blind and he can just barely see now because of the shock. So with him,
what actually? I mean, talk to me about that because it sounds a horrific story. What actually happened with him?
Well, he went to a private school originally, and his parents sent him to a madrasa for I think for whatever reason they wanted to do that, to instill in some kind of Islamic system of belief. He went there and he was treated very badly. Whether he was forced to do things which he didn't want to do, things like reading things and being overworked. It's like he just went blind.
No, but I mean, everybody's worked at school. But be specific, because if you're to be under that amount of stress that you go blind. I'm not so I don't understand. So talk to me specifically, because obviously everybody works at school. Everybody has to read whatever they have to read. What actually happened? And that was over here, was it, the school?
I think it was overseas, but I think it was linked to an organization. I have to ask him details because he told me that from that moment on, his life changed, because obviously going blind transforms your life. And he says he was treated very badly. He was left there by his parents alone. So he was isolated. And whether he went blind because of the way he was treated, I think, the shock.
And do you know specifically how he was treated? I mean, you've quoted a couple of things, but that didn't sound too
no,
clear about
details. But I think I can imagine he was treated very badly, probably in like a semi-prison type environment, I imagine. Because those madrasas, they're very strict.
Would he talk about it to help others?
He does talk about it because he's now an holistic doctor. He now works in homeopathy, and he's a very funny man. He's also a comedian, but he now works as a homeopath. He talks about his blindness, what happened to him, and he's come to terms with it now. It took him many years to come to terms with it. He was adrift with his life. He didn't know what to do, so he's come to terms with it now. But he realizes that you shouldn't send your kids away to a place which is a completely different culture. And going blind,
we should get him on the show because I'm
absolutely sure he's named Intisar, and he's a great person to talk to because he'll tell you about his experiences, and I'll forward it in.
No, we're definitely getting him on the show. And the reason, and the reason it's important is because there'll be lots of people who will be watching this.
Yeah,
think that they're alone in their experiences. And one of the things I like about doing this show is that apart all the fun and frivolity and it's wonderful escapism, and boy, do we need that at the moment. We need
we do. Of course we do. But a pressure cooker, we need to be release our steam. And
absolutely. But also we do need to shine a spotlight on different ways of doing things, and for people who are suffering for whatever reason, because there are others who will gain confidence and some sort of security in knowing that they're not alone. I've had, on the show, over the now 700 plus interviews that we've done, we've had people talk about being adopted. We've had people who've been suicidal, who put out suicide notes on Facebook. Unfortunately, all people have come along and they've been supportive, and they prevented a couple of suicides, which is great. They then come on the show to talk about what got them to that point, but also how others can learn lessons from them. And one of the most rewarding things about that is hearing from people who said, look, I watched that episode. I saw Nick Jordan, for example, who was in Australia. It's out there. He posted a very brave thing where he put a suicide note on Facebook. He then turned around and lots of his friends came on board. The police had to be called to break down the door to stop him doing what he was doing to himself. He saved his life, but he came on and spoke about what drove him to that place, how he then coped, and the support that he received. And I know people emailed me privately to say, look, that was so powerful. to hear somebody being brave enough to talk about their experiences. It gave them courage and also resources to find out how they can cope. But it's when you don't know about those things, when nobody talks about it, that's when you feel even more alone, because there's nothing you can do.
Yes, I think you need an outlet, someone to speak to who can help you, and there's always someone there to speak to. I mean, I think in the Islamic culture, you can always go to your local mosque, because they actually double up as a community center, and they do help people with mental health issues. If there's something in your family, someone in your family who is being abusive towards you, or you're being forced to do something against your will, whether they're telling you to go abroad, you can go to your local mosque and speak to someone in confidence, normally the imam, because they're trained to deal with, help you and refer you to the authorities. So there's always somewhere to go, especially in the Islamic community, which is very
great. And I think that's what we should do, is shine a spotlight, because lots of people will always shine a negative spotlight on something and look for the bad, but you can also, there's lots of good, and that's a fantastic resource. And is that how you coped as well? Did you find that useful yourself?
I actually did, because I went to mosque afterwards, and I had lots of male role models, my father, uncles, imam. I had lots of strong teachers. I had lots of strong male role models. So I was brought up quite strictly until I was in my mid-teens. So I was brought up very, very well. I'm very lucky to have very good parents. And so I didn't go wayward or anything like that. So I had had people around me, adults who I could talk to. And I had teachers and counselors. So I'm very lucky. With those people that don't have that resource, there is someone to go to. Because it can mess up your life, like with Jonathan Hansler, for example. It can change your adulthood, your early life, to such an extent that you drift for years. But luckily I didn't. I mean, after school, I went to university, did a degree in engineering. So it didn't affect me.
Whereabouts did you go to university?
I went to University College London. Don't tell anyone. Because I don't want people to think I'm too intellectual, because I'm a comedian.
Well, you've used posh words, so it's got to be. So engineering, that's interesting. Was that going to be your career then? Were you focused on becoming?
Well, my parents said to me, get a degree which you can fall back on and use if comedy and acting doesn't work, which normally it doesn't. Once I did that, they went off my back, and then you can do whatever you want, because you have that in your pocket. So I did that. I worked for the civil service for a few years with that degree.
What did you do for the civil service?
I was in the MOD.
Oh, right. Oh, fantastic. A friend of mine was in the MOD.
Yes.
I know a guy who's been on the show called Nick Pope, who worked for the MOD for 20 plus years.
Yeah, he was in the UFO desk.
That's the one. So for 2 or 3 of those years, he was in charge of UFOs. And
he was the FTO.
Who's now becomes the biggest conspiracy theorist expert.
He's amazing. He's amazing. Yeah, he knows, of course, not much more than he can reveal.
Oh no, he revealed it all on my show. He's been on every official secret, every official. It was all here. The thing about
he's no longer.
There's green men and purple women that came down. He knows all about that.
He can talk to them with massage oil and all that. Yes, one was fancy.
And we had Spiros Malaris on the show as well.
Oh, yes,
the alien autopsy and what really happened at Roswell. Yeah. We've had all of that. So it's
it's really clear that we have been visited by different species. They are here, and we are being acclimatized to the fact that they have been here. One day it will be revealed.
Well, no, not one day. David Icke will tell you all about it today. Not one day.
He knows.
Oh, David Icke knows all these
things. The lizards.
The lizards, all those sort of things. And I think, and as my mate Nick Pope, I went to school with Nick Pope. That's how I
did. You? Fantastic.
Yeah, high school, Lord Wandsworth College, big shout out to them. I was in the same rugby team as Johnny Wilkinson. Same rugby team. I had the same coach. We played on the same fields.
You're so well connected, Andrew.
Johnny Wilkinson, albeit a few years apart.
Not many years.
We were on the first 15 together.
You're both spring chickens.
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely well and truly clucked. I think that's right. Absolutely.
Well, I wasn't allowed. I think
Oh, you frozen. You've just switched yourself off. You sent yourself to Coventry. Have you come out again?
I got a phone call.
You sent yourself to Coventry, back to your home roots. I loved it.
So tell the universe I'm still there. I'm still in Coventry.
So what did you do at the Ministry of Defence? What can you talk about?
I was in their bunker. I was all over the place. I was doing the IT stuff. Just like encryption and sort of database stuff. We're working with all sorts of weird and wonderful people, mandarins. And oranges. Mandarins, you know, one with the stiff upper lips and everything. Those kind of people, mandarins and top brass, and they're the most raucous and rude, not rude, but very boisterous kind of people behind the scenes.
I have a theory about this, and I'm not alone in this theory, that the more that you have conformity, the more that you are forced to comply, very regimental during the day, when you let your hair down, as they say, if you have any left, when you let your hair down, these are the most raucous people. The more you have to conform to a certain way, the more you go out there when you can. Is that fair?
That's fair, because their private lives were not debauched, but their private lives were raucous compared to their public lives. Absolutely. I think that's why politicians get in trouble, because they do things with, you know, with certain people that get them in trouble because they want to let loose, because they have all this power and pent up emotion which they can't reveal to the public.
And human, and we had a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists and all sorts of people who understand the human condition on this show. In fact, everybody on this show. And they will tell you, and this is what I find fascinating, they will tell you that actually that is a common thread, that the more you're suppressed, the more like a pressure cooker, you have to let it out. So if you have to be uniform during the day and very disciplined, very regimented, you're more likely to go crazy at night.
That was true with me, because I was brought up in a very strict Muslim household, and outside that Muslim household, I was completely mad. But when I went home, I had to behave in a certain way. So I had a foot in two worlds, being first generation as well. Also, obviously, my world's in two cultural worlds: the English-British world and the Islamic world. So also in that respect, I'm also bilingual. I think trilingual. So you got all that in your mind.
Which languages do you do?
Obviously English, I'm a form of English.
Oh, when are you learning that? That's good. You have the best English of anybody. You've got zillions of words. I love it. You've got many more. You wait till I get the thesaurus. It's got to be good.
But I don't talk like this to anybody. It's just with you, Andrew.
I love it. I love it. And what are the other two languages?
And I speak Urdu, of course, fluently. Urdu, the language of poetry. Punjabi, bit of Hindi, because Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu have the same root.
Okay.
Bit of Arabic. Of course, if you speak Arabic, of course, you're automatically a spy, because they need Arabic speakers, but they want Arabic speakers who look like you, not like me.
Ah, yes. Okay.
You see, because I'm too obvious. They want someone who looks like you.
Yes. So you have to teach me a bit of what's a really lovely phrase?
Assalamu alaikum, aapka naam kya hai? That's Urdu.
Oh, that's lovely. And what does that mean?
That means good morning, Andrew. How are you today?
Oh, amazing. And I love that there's certain languages which have a beautiful rhythm, aren't there? There's certain, and I think there's certain, the Scandinavian languages, they used to have it on the Muppets. Exactly. But there are certain languages very guttural as well, which are not simple. It sounds like you're about to gob on somebody all the time.
The Germanic languages. German is very guttural.
It is.
Fleming.
No, right. Don't do that in the current climate. It's got to be good. But
I think that Urdu were used by people like Rumi. He used Urdu and Farsi and Persian because it was very flowed like Middle French, that kind of language. It's very musical language, Urdu. And my dad was.
I love just hearing the rhythm of language and things like that. And
my dad was a great poet. Yeah. My dad was a great poet in Urdu. He could write in several languages. Yeah, absolutely. He wrote poetry. He could recite it.
Oh,
word perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
Did you get your love of learning and writing from him as well?
I think I did. I think I inherited all his love of learning and poetry and everything from him, I think.
Do you still have some of his Urdu poems?
I do, but they're locked away somewhere. But they're in a book he wrote, and they're in somewhere.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Yasser, because
I can't read them.
This is a regular. Now you're a regular on the show. You're going to have to dig out some Urdu poetry, because I have poets on the show. I've had all sorts of poets come on with their thing. I would love to have some Urdu poetry, and it's a good excuse for you to go back and have a look and dig out.
Because his writing is very hard to read because it's written in a very high form, which I have to review and have a look at.
Okay, let's do that for a future. We're going to get you back all the time, which is good.
I'll be back.
I know we love that. But you went then from the Ministry of Defence, where you did that sort of stuff. When do you start getting into professional performing?
Well, I was doing that while I was there, but I was getting in trouble because I was revealing things that shouldn't be. I was putting things on social media that this and that. So I was told. I think I left there in 2010 because I was sacked.
What things did you put on social media that you weren't allowed?
Things like gigs.
You weren't allowed to put that on?
You weren't allowed to put it on because you're using your real name. So I had to do character names, like I was doing characters like Alan Sugar, and I was doing characters like David Cameron, who's like a black version of David Cameron. I was getting in trouble for that because I wasn't using my real, but they still said you're using your real face.
Okay, you're using your real face.
Whose face should I use then?
Every other face is taken.
I know.
They're
very paranoid, the civil service, about things. I don't know why they are.
And I understand, as I say, looking at people's perspective, you have to keep certain things secret. But were you not allowed to do gigs whilst you're at the Ministry of Defence?
I was allowed to, but I couldn't use my real name, so I had to use the character name. And even then, I couldn't film it. So they're very careful that you're not open to blackmail or coercion from outside sources or from people who could use it against you.
How would they use it against you? How would they use your gig against you?
They could say, if you don't pay me money, I'll tell your family about this gig. Because my family didn't know what I was doing. So I was doing it in secret.
How would your family have responded to it? Because beforehand you told me that you had something to fall back on, and they were quite supportive of the comedy and the performance side. Why would they have been ashamed?
They would be initially shocked, and that to me would give me hot flushes because I was worried that how they react. So I never told them because they're your family, your parents, and they will judge you badly.
Why would they judge you badly?
They probably wouldn't have, but I think in my imagination I thought they would, because it's not something that a Pakistani, normally he's a doctor, an engineer, or a scientist or a lawyer, not doing comedy in a comedy club.
But before you said when you were studying engineering,
yes, I'm happy with that.
You said you told me your parents wanted you to do engineering for something to fall back on. Now that implied that you'd already had the discussion with them about being a performer.
I did, but I told them I was a writer.
And writing, I
think writing is more respectable than performing in their eyes.
And what sort of writer did you tell them you were going to be?
I was thinking comedy writing, which is acceptable to them because it's writing of a form. I think performing from them is not good unless it's Bollywood. If I think I was in Bollywood, they'd be ecstatic because they love Bollywood. But anything else, it's almost like prostitution, in a way.
I mean, and seriously, they would have been very
they would have been frowning
to have you as a comedian.
Yes, and maybe they wouldn't have, but that was my perception.
But did you ever discuss it with them?
No, they still. My mother still doesn't know.
And your mother's still alive?
Still alive, yes.
And she's
my brother knows.
She's a regular watcher of this show. So what would you like to say?
Hello, Mum.
What?
I'm sorry. It's not me. I'm not really here. I'm a hologram.
So I mean, as you know, we work in holograms as well. So yes, are you seriously telling me that your mother doesn't know that you're a performer?
I think she probably does, but I can't tell her. I just have this, I don't know what it is. It's this inbuilt thing. I can't tell my elders what I'm doing because I feel like I'll get hot flushes. I feel really embarrassed. But I think only with I think if my mother came to my show, I would freeze. Whereas with everybody else, that wouldn't bother me. But if my mother came, I would freeze on stage, which is why I don't invite her.
Does your mother live in London?
Yes, she does. With me.
She lives with you?
She lives with me. My prop stash is hidden in the cellar. She says you can't see my wigs, my lipsticks, my fishnets, all hidden away. If she saw those, she'd have a heart attack.
Do you think she'd come on the show?
Unlikely.
But you'll be surprised who comes on the show.
She shuns the outside world.
Okay, no, I understand.
She might come. She might come. She might come.
I'd be very interested in talking to her. I mean, we've had the good, the Queen's chaplain. We've had lots of very respectable politicians. We've had
wonderful VIPs on.
Titans of industry.
I have to ask her, but I have to ask the context. Andrew Eborn, very distinguished broadcaster.
I would like to know. I'd like her view on the world. I would like.
Yes. My brothers know about what I'm doing, but they're just incredulous.
Yeah, it must be. You're under the same roof. So she's in the house at the moment.
Yes, with my brother. My brother knows with his wife. So we live together, and he knows what I'm doing, of course, because he's on social media. My other brother, who's in Spain, he's got a Russian wife, who's an oligarch's wife. He knows. So most of my family know. It's only my elders who are not on social media. They do their own things. They don't know. And I think I should tell her, because it's just my own mental block.
What?
She probably wouldn't mind.
No, and that's the thing. Are you concerned about her reaction?
Not so much. It's just my imagination how she'd react. But I'm thinking about how she'd react if I was 15. I'm not 15 now, so she wouldn't react in the same way. She knows that I'm a mature individual. I wouldn't get up to any kind of naughtiness or also get in trouble. So I think it's just my own mental processes.
Well, would you feel better if you told her?
I think I would. She sort of knows, because she's seen some pictures of me, which she was shown by my brother. I think she knows anyway.
What sort of pictures was she shown?
Those casting ones you saw. She says, "Oh, what are these for?" She said, "Oh, they're for casting," and she knows what I do. I think we haven't talked about it.
Well, what we should do, yes, I mean, it's suggested. I like the idea that maybe you could come on the show. We can talk about life.
Yes.
Talk about the various things that we touch on, and maybe
Absolutely.
you could come on together. Would you like that?
That would be nice. Yeah.
And we could gently reveal, gently.
My mother wears lots of gold. She's like Mr. T. She wears lots of bangles.
Good. Fantastic.
She wears bangles, so the gold will surprise you.
Oh no, I will look forward to it. Well, we will set a date for that.
You have to ask her first.
Oh,
gently.
No, please.
I have to bribe her with some samosas and ghee.
Okay. Well, wait, no, does she cook? Does she cook at home?
She's a wonderful cook.
Oh, I'll tell you what we should do then, because I've had a lot of chefs on as well. People from every walk of life.
You have?
So, and because a lot of people have been in furlough, they haven't been working their 5-star zillion rosettes that they have normally. They've been at home preparing dishes on this show, which other people can try. So I learned for the first time. My mother, who passed away on July the 11th this year.
Sorry about that.
Mother, it was your fault. My mother, but thank you for being sorry. My mother loved pavlova. So I always wanted to make a pavlova. And I had a wonderful chef who works in a 5-star restaurant, a guy called Chris Todd, who was furloughed, and he hates meringue, which is great. So I said to him, but he knows how to do it. So I wanted to learn how to make a pavlova. So I did that, fortunately, a couple of weeks before my mother passed. And it wasn't as a result of the pavlova, fortunately. I then decorated effectively our kitchen with meringue and everything. It was a glorious moment. And I have to say, it tasted sensational. It was really good. So people who are a little bit scared about trying these things, we can do this. So maybe that's the angle. We can.
I think that's a great angle.
We can talk to your mother and say, look, I've had lots of 5-star chefs. I would love to. What would be her favorite dish? What would she make?
She loves biryani.
I love a biryani. Maybe she could teach us how to make the perfect biryani.
She could be the Mother Jaffrey of the Octopus TV.
Would that be good? Okay, suggest that we have. You can say that this is what we have. We have different strands, and I would genuinely love to do that.
Absolutely, I'll ask her.
As part of the conversation, as these things go, we just freewheel it. We can maybe gently introduce that. Would that be good?
That'd be good. I'll put that to her. She'd love that. Actually, I'll ask her. Fantastic,
brilliant.
We love. Of course, I'll be back to talk to you in future occasions. I'll be more Islamically dressed.
Oh no, but that's great. I understand.
Part-time imam, you see. I do part-time imamming.
Right.
Once in a while, once a month. So sometimes I'm dressed up in all Islamic gear. So I'll be much more serious.
Okay, no, I deal with serious. We like that. We like the different layers.
The mosques were closed for so long; they were closed for weeks and weeks. The mosques. I know recently they've opened back. And and all distancing is very difficult to maneuver.
It must be difficult. I mean, we have, as you know, I'm just by Regent's Park, and we have the wonderful mosque.
Yeah, the iconic.
And it's the most extraordinary juxtaposition of all sorts of cultures and creeds and everything else, because we have the American ambassador's residence, Winfield House, which is where presidents stay when they come over here, right in my backyard. And right next to that, virtually right next to that, we have the wonderful mosque. And then we have the Israeli ambassador's house down there. This is The
London for
world
you.
in one park is Regent's Park.
Macrocosm.
We do. We love it.
That's
And it's
a
the most
macrocosm.
beautiful park. And I go walking of a morning, and I walk in really early in the morning. And
You're very lucky, Andrew, to live there.
stunning. Absolutely spoiled rotten. Absolutely spoiled rotten.
Lovely park.
It is
Fantastic
absolutely stunning. So we're going to do all of that in future shows, which is what I love. But I just want to finish on one thing. Because comedy and your wonderful writing and things like that, you've talked about your career, your upbringing. You've revealed some extraordinary things which I never knew about you today. And I think this is what I love about these freewheeling conversations. And we only sort of set up, and you put on social media, you showed all these wonderful pictures of you with your Marty Feldman eyes, and I love that. And I said to you, when should we come on the show? And you wrote back, my people will speak to your people, and we'll work out some date, maybe in 2022. And I said, what about today? What about today at 9:09? We'll get you on the line at 9:09.
That's your legal training. That's your legal sharpness doing that. Very, very exacting and very precise, and it worked.
Exactly. I said, well, there's no time like the present. So we got you on, which I thought was brilliant. And so you will be a regular. We're going to get you back.
I love it. I love it.
Sensational. But just to finish on, I mean, it's so wonderful and inspiring looking at other people. People starting in the profession now, we're being told by the Chancellor, although he was misreported in all sorts of things, including ITV News. He didn't say you're a useless profession, you've got to go and change.
Yes.
And it was, and it's what we said beforehand about people twist what gets said. But people should look at things about retraining different professions, understanding what they would be.
I think they should.
People starting now, what advice, having had such a rich career in this, even though your mum doesn't know about it, having had such a rich career, what would be the big lessons that you have learned over your career, and the advice you would give a young YASSER Kayani starting out? What would you say?
I would say to young YASSER Kayani, bleach your skin. No, I wouldn't. No, I would say to young YASSER Kayani, first thing is, don't pigeonhole yourself doing one thing. So don't just be a stand-up. Be diverse. So do acting, do comedy, do writing, do improv, do stand-up, do sketch comedy, do different things, so you get experience of all of them. And don't compare yourself to other people. Follow your own path. Don't get jealous of other people's success, because their success is based on them being on a different path to you. Be focused and be nice to people everywhere, because you never know when you'll meet that person again. Don't have any hubris. Be humble. Be good. Try to be good all the time, and just learn and learn and learn, and just collaborate with everybody, because that person could make your script much better. Don't be proud of your script and say, I'm not going to change it, it's perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Work with some good mentors. Have good mentors. I have good mentors. I've had people like Chris Head, who's like a guru of stand-up comedy and teaching, and of course Bill Dare, and of course you, Andrew, being a guru. And so have mentors who will guide you in comedy early on. And when you find your own voice in comedy, when you have your own distinct style, then you know you can go on your own way. Because very early on, you're copying other people's styles, and you're trying to find your own voice. So once you get your own voice and style, then stick with that. Don't be diverted by fashion or by PC culture. Follow your own heart. Write what makes you laugh. Whether that's naughty or raucous or non-PC, do what makes you laugh. And that's all I can say. Right. And get married by the time you're 25, YASSER. Don't hang around.
Be yourself, because everybody else is taken.
Absolutely. That's a good, pithy anecdote to end on. Be yourself.
Yes, it's been an absolute delight. I look forward to bringing you back with your mother. What is your mother's name?
Shameen.
Shameen. I look forward to Shameen and learning fantastic.
I have to ask her first.
I know. You're so persuasive. I know you're good.
I think I'll just drug her with Vicodin. She won't know.
I will look forward to having your mother as a special guest, and we will learn how to make the wonderful biryani. For now, YASSER, thank you very much for being my guest.
Pleasure, sir. It's been a joy. Up till next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Andrew.
Bye.
Bye.
So thank you again to YASSER KAYANI for being my very special guest. If you'd like to be a guest yourself on the Andrew Eborn Show, write to me at guests@octopustv.com. That's guests@octopustv.com. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to Octopus TV. You can follow us on all the usual social media at Andrew Eborn, at Octopus TV. But for now, thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.